Hey everybody, this is Jackie Lukeman.
And I'm over here, Abdushahi Lukeman.
And this is Live in Lukeman Nation, or as we thought we might want to start calling it, Late Night with the Lukeman.
Yeah.
Since we've started doing these kind of on the late end, as of late. So we wanted to continue this discussion that we started a couple of days ago. That started with this issue with this Black Lives Matter, this group that calls themselves Black Lives Matter out of New York, and their really problematic speech at the mic at the Mother of All rallies. And we started talking about why Black people seriously need to stop trying to convince white people that we are American enough, that we are human enough, to deserve equal rights and justice, and especially economic justice and reparations in this country. And if we're not going to rehash that, because please go back and watch the last episode. Tell you everything we need to know about how we felt about that hot mess.
Oh yeah.
But we ran out of time to talk about why it is so critical that when we have the opportunity to talk about issues that affect us, that we get the narrative right, that we got to dispense with all of this emotional appealing to people's better conscience, because we just need to go into the argument with the idea, unapologetically, that a lot of people who are listening to us don't have a better conscience where we're concerned. Because and we can confidently say that that's true, because we know 400 years of history that has proven,
and counting, 400 years of history
and counting,
right? And
400 years is a conservative estimate, because really it's been longer than that. But the history shows that in this country doesn't have a track record of having a better conscience when it comes to justice for Black people, and it just doesn't. So we believe that we have to go into these discussions with the mindset that white people we talk to today are not going to have a whole lot of a different perspective on our issues than white people who were aware of them a generation ago, and a generation before them, and a generation before them. And again, history proves it. And if you even want to go back and look at the polls, we like to believe that we are a better nation than we were during the Civil Rights Movement and before the Civil Rights Movement. But when you look at the polls and compare them, the polls that were taken during the Civil Rights Movement and the polls that have been taken today about what white people think about race relations in this country, about racism in this country, if it's still important, pretty much the same percentage of white people, around 51%, between 50, I think the lowest poll I saw from the early 60s, late 50s was maybe around 47 to 49% of white people thought that race and racism were important issues, important enough that the country needed to focus on them and do something about it. And on the high end, it was like 51% of people. But that was after Sunday, Bloody Sunday was aired on the news. Before then, fewer white people believe, fewer than 47% of it was around, somewhere around.
It was a ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like 20%. Less than 20% of white people believed racism was an issue in America.
And they probably were married to Black people. You know, so,
that's 20%.
Yeah, they were probably married to Black people.
They lived in the states where they could be married to Black people. Yeah. So they knew, and they lived in neighborhoods around Black people, had Black friends, and so they knew that 20%. But then after Bloody Sunday was aired on television, a lot of people don't understand that that's the history. Most white people in this country didn't give a rat's hairy behind about how badly Black people were treated. And I don't believe that they didn't know. Y'all ain't stupid. Y'all are not stupid. Stop trying to make us believe that you're just clueless.
And they weren't stupid back in the 60s.
Exactly. You knew that there was racial discrimination and there was police brutality and there were separate and unequal schools.
But can I tell you how, Jackie, how you know that they weren't stupid?
How?
All you have to do is look at the old black and white. Remember when we was coming up and they used to have this series. I don't know if it still comes on, but it's called Eyes on the Prize.
Right. Yes.
Remember that?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And documented the civil rights struggle and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And those same white folks in Chicago that were talking about they didn't see any racial problems and stuff were the first ones on camera saying when they were dealing with the housing desegregation. Well, I don't want no N words living next to me. I don't care how much the N word makes. I don't care how much they get paid. Oh, wait a minute. You just said that there wasn't no. You were one of the people that were polled that said that that everything was fine.
Right.
But now all of a sudden, man, you don't want any N words living next to you. You don't care if they was Sidney Poitier. You don't want them living next to you.
Right.
So I mean, so they weren't stupid then. It's just like it's more of a politeness.
Right.
It's more of a thing when the poster comes around. Nobody wants to be perceived as racist. So the poster comes around, just like with Trump. And with the Trump supporters and all that, it's like they go to the Trump supporters and say, "Well, you support Donald Trump?" Oh, hell no! He's a
right,
man. He's crazy.
No, he's crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy. Now we ain't talking about the people that was out for him.
Right.
But he won because a lot of people lied to the posters and said, "Oh no, Donald Trump."
Donald Trump? Why would I vote for him? Are you crazy?
That's ridiculous.
And then they went in the poll. Then they went in the voting booth.
As soon as they went in the polls and closed them curtains.
To make America great again.
I don't care what they say. I'm making America great again. Donald Trump. You know what I mean? So again, you're right, Jackie. It has nothing to do with whether or not people are stupid.
Right.
Or or even clueless. But it's just crazy, man.
It is. I mean, so.
Oh, but before we go on, first of all, because we got this chronological order thing going on.
Oh yeah, we're trying.
So, yes, we're trying anyway. So, first of all, you were on, and this is Jackie Day. You was on.
No, it's not Jackie Day.
What I'm saying was you was on Fault Lines this morning.
I was
with Garland Nixon and Lee Stranahan.
I was, and that was wild because I think I was on for. I don't know if they meant to keep me on for just like one segment before the break, but you know how I talk, so I wasn't having that. So I started talking about the issue with the guys from Black Lives Matter New York, or that group that call themselves Black Lives Matter, at the Mother of All rallies, and I was very pleasantly surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised when I can agree, when conservatives can find some common ground. Conservatives aren't evil people. I think that on many policies they're really misguided because they live a life that we don't. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised that Lee Stranahan articulated the issue with this speech at this rally really well. And just got it right the first time, and was completely right.
What did he say?
So he said that even before I really explained it all, he said that what I was talking about was respectability politics, the respectability doctrine, and how black people basically need to abandon it. And I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And he said, you know what? I'm glad to hear that. You see, but I also understand that when a conservative says, I'm glad to hear that people want to abandon the respectability doctrine or respectability politics. Mostly they just want to be able to say all kinds of hateful stuff to and about people that they really feel, because they think that's, being politically correct. For us, the respectability doctrine, it literally means we have to make nice and behave ourselves the way that white people tell us to, in order for them to accept us.
Yeah, it's like a parent-child relationship.
Right.
You tell your child, look, if you be good, then you can get this. Or if you be good, mommy or daddy will take you to the park, or we'll do this and we do that. So, I mean, really, it's actually responding, given once again in the position of weakness.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, you're demanding something, and the people who have the power are the ones that's telling you, well, we won't listen to you unless.
Right, right.
You
And the
know.
unless is always this they always move the goalposts with the unless,
Mm.
right? It's like, okay, yeah, we understand that racism is horrible and terrible, and that the system is unfair to you guys, but
Sad emoji.
yeah, you
Sad emoji.
sad emoji.
Sad
We're
emoji.
so sorry that it's so bad for
Yeah,
you. So
sad
sad.
emoji.
But, and we agree that something needs to be done about it, but we're not going to support you unless you do A, B, and C. Like, if you're going to have this conversation with us, you can't be angry. If you want us to listen to you in this conversation, you can't be yelling and screaming at us. If you want us to listen to you in this conversation, you can't bring up white privilege. Then after white people ignore us, then we're really angry.
Right.
And we take to the streets because you didn't listen when we talked.
Mm-hmm.
So then we take to the streets. Then white people's response is, well, I understand that you're angry, but if you really want us to support your cause, you have to not block traffic. Why don't you protest in front of the police stations? We do. Why don't you protest in front of city halls? We do. Why don't you protest peacefully down the sidewalk where you're not getting in anybody's way? We do.
Yeah.
And then when you ignore us after we do all of those
why
things.
Why do you have to shout?
Then it's why do you have to shout? Because you didn't listen to the other 8 times we did exactly what you told us to do in order for you to respect us and our position and our issues.
Now imagine how that makes us feel.
I'm saying.
But this is the thing. Imagine how much this makes us feel. To have to go to people and now, because I'm listening to your language, and you said you won't listen to us. You won't listen. So I'm saying, like, how does that make you feel to know that in order for you to get anywhere in a so-called free and democratic society, that you have to appeal to the consciousness of the majority group and say, please, could you help us? I mean, please, we need your help in order to enjoy the rights that they say we were supposed to have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, to me, that is so humiliating.
Exactly.
It's very humiliating.
Exactly.
They have to constantly keep on saying, well, look, you didn't listen to us. And this and that. Yeah. I mean, and I can understand the anger. The anger that my freedom and the rights and the freedom and rights of not only me but my children and my grandchildren and my posterity, as the founding fathers would say, rest upon another group of people actually seeing my pain.
Right.
I have to depend on
validating
it.
it.
Right, validating it. It's not based upon how good I am, how talented I am. It's not based upon my own humanity.
Right.
No, but you have to.
Right.
That's and I guess what I'm trying to say is that is a real sick, twisted.
It's an abusive relationship.
It is abusive.
It's an abusive relationship. It's like whether I am loved. Think about being in a psychologically abusive relationship. We're not even going to talk about the physical aspects of it. Where we getting our ass beat on so many different levels.
I mean, it's like a pimp and hoe relationship.
It is this psychologically kind of, I am going to make you jump through all kinds of ridiculous, unrealistic hoops that I never intend to acknowledge.
And you know what I was just thinking about?
What were you thinking?
Well, they got this show on HBO. I don't know if you guys ever seen it, called The Deuce.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of pimping, and it's a relationship between pimps and prostitutes and stuff, and exploitation of those prostitutes. And I'm reminded of a scene where it was raining outside, and one of the prostitutes, she's drenched, and she comes in and she hands this little Jerry curl head dude, who's her pimp, the money, and she's pleading with this guy. Now he's eating a nice meal in the restaurant, and she's drenched.
Right.
So she said, "Daddy, She said, "It's raining outside. I really want to go home and just end this for the day."
Mm-hmm.
This joker turns around and say, "Well, babe, I understand, you're wet and you're tired and all, but we all got to work. We all
got to work.
So yeah, he's sitting there eating steak and eggs, and and so when we're talking about this, it's like here we are, we built the country, and defended the country. Everything that made America what it is was we participated in.
Yep.
And participated in overrepresentative of our numbers.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it's like, Daddy, I just want to be part of this great experiment that we have here. Yeah, I understand after you taking my money. Yeah, I understand, but we all got to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap. And you just took my boots.
You took my boots. I don't have straps.
But we all got. I mean, look, my great grandfather and them came here and they were poor and stuff. And you sitting up there eating steak and eggs and all. So I don't know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when you was on that show today.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was listening, and one of the things that you spoke about, which I think needs to be really emphasized, is the fact that we were talking about, and we spoke about this on the show about the George Soros conspiracy machine, and all of this other stuff.
When
you was on that show today.
Sorry.
The George Soros thing, we talked about that, and y'all spoke about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something that was interesting about the way that the left, the so-called left or progressives, the reason why we even entertain Soros or the Koch brothers or somebody, because we don't want to give up all nothing.
That's the thing, man. I mean, especially in black movements, right? Financing and funding, and it was really cool today because when I brought up this issue of y'all on the left being so damn cheap. Y'all could fund Bernie Sanders' whole campaign with $27 and less.
Go Bernie.
But when a grassroots organization in your town needs some money to travel to a conference or to buy supplies to help out people, and what y'all do? All of a sudden y'all broke. You were broke during the campaign, but all of a sudden you found that $27 then. But now, and then I understand that we're all in a very precarious financial. Well, that's not true because all of us are not in a precarious financial situation. The reason this is such a problem, this whole Soros argument, especially as it links to Black Lives Matter, the reason this is such an issue is because black people really are broke. I mean,
we're gonna talk about that
we're fitting to get there, but
I mean, we about ready to get Blade Runner broke.
Yeah, I mean
2049 Blade Runner broke.
We're about to be like post-apocalyptic broke before the apocalypse, if we last that long. Who knows? But I mean, black people really, on a whole. I'm not just talking about Jackie Lukman and Abdus Lukman have decent jobs and we're middle class and we're doing okay, right? No, I'm talking about the people who live a block from us. Those people don't have any money, and I'm not talking about one family. I mean everybody who live in that three building apartment. Those people are broke, and many of them are working. Okay, so we're talking about, we put an article up about discrimination against black people in employment. It hasn't changed since 1989.
30 years.
30 years. Our wealth, we've always lagged behind white people in wealth because of what was stolen from us and what was denied us historically in this country. I got to turn that off because I'm looking at myself talking. It's freaking me out. But black people, black organizations, black activists have always had a hard time raising funds. Always. Because we've always been poor. There's always been a very small percentage of middle class and really, really well-off black people in the black community. Always. And it's always been unrealistic for people to expect, for black people to expect that Oprah Winfrey is going to fund every black organization that exists. She's not. She's just not, for a lot of reasons. Number one being she's one person. Number two, I mean,
she ain't got enough money to do all
she really doesn't have enough money to cover everything that we all need to be done. And we don't even know how she feels about some of these things.
Right.
So, so we have all of these people who are, supposed allies. And I've seen this with my own eyes. I really have. And it blows my mind. There are people who are perpetrating all kinds of BS, crazy stuff. Just ridiculous ideas. And white people are throwing money at those folks. I'm not going to repeat it because I'm not. But you know what I'm talking about. And all of those people are not white. Some of those people are black. But as long as they are perpetrating the narrative that a lot of white progressives want to hear, if it's about Hillary Clinton, if it's about the DNC lawsuit, if it's about George Soros, if it's about Seth Rich, if it's about Russia, if it's about Bernie Sanders, if it's about those particular issues, as long as people talk about that stuff, then a lot of our white allies, they just throw money at them.
Well, because in this country we always love the minstrel show.
And
that's what it is. I mean, you get some of these black talking heads, and and look, they know the game. They know the game. Booker T knew the game. This goes way back to Booker T.
Oh my gosh.
Booker T understood, and you covered it on Brick by Brick. You covered it here. Booker T understood. He said, "I got to get some money out these white folks." You know what I mean?
How am I gonna do that?
I got look. They mad because we ain't slaves now. They mad because Reconstruction came on, and the whole so-called Southern way of life is upset, and they think that we gonna get revenge on them and all.
They think we gonna kill them all.
Yeah. So they mad. So but I need their money. So how I'm gonna get these white folks to So then what happened is the fact that Booker T. That's why they call it compromise, because Booker T. said, look, if I say what they want to hear, that us poor colored folk, all we want is a school and be able to take care of ourselves and be able to just go off in the corner somewhere and take care of ourselves and and we look, running the country is white folk business. Yep. That's white folk business. You ain't got to worry about us wanting to do that. And so what happened is that he hit a home run, and so the white folks that was there, they started coming out their pocket because Booker T had the menstrual trouble. Now inside, according to some reports say that he secretly hated that he had to do that, but he understood that he had to play the game. I don't know if this stream went back up, but I'm seeing that something went wrong.
Still up over here.
All right.
Well, let us know. Let us know, you guys, if that you can still see and hear us.
All right. So my point being is the fact that we seen that when we spoke about Black Lives Matter and the way that it's the same paradigm. It's the same thing. We get up there and we say, look, I'm mad, but wait a minute now. We choose our words carefully. And we say to white folks, we say, well, look, we don't want nothing from you. You know what I mean? We just, we're Americans. We don't want nothing from you. And you see the fact that, it's the minstrel show because it makes everybody comfortable. Now, the moment that you get up there, and I say this, and I truly believe this, I think that, and you always had the John Browns with us. And that's our slang, y'all, for white folks that's down with us. Y'all know that, right?
Yep.
So you always had the John Browns.
It's white folks who ride and die.
The ride and die white folks. You always had them. And you got them now. But the majority of a lot of our so-called white progressive allies, the moment that you start talking wealth inequality, the moment that you start talking about that we're not going to deal with the disparities in wealth in this country unless we force the government to have a better distribution of wealth. What I'm saying is, and see, I even fell into it. What I'm saying is that we need y'all to back reparations legislation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, this can no longer be white folks sitting on the side saying, let's see, that's interesting. John Conyers, he charged such and such and such.
Well, how will that be
Well, yeah,
implemented?
how
What
would
does
that?
that look
Well,
like?
you know how to be implemented the same way that $700 billion was just given to the Pentagon.
Yeah.
That's how that be implemented. In fact, reparations for black folks will be a lot cheaper than what we just gave the Pentagon.
I mean, it would be. It would actually be a lot cheaper than it would be around what we give Israel.
Yeah.
But what I talked about this morning in the context of George Soros and financing, it makes me angry when white progressives make a big deal about George Soros possibly giving money to Black Lives Matter, because I know damn well y'all ain't gave no money to Black Lives Matter. I mean, seriously, if white people would fund the movement, y'all wouldn't have to be worried about George Soros or anybody else funding the movement. That's always been true. And please don't think, I know, because some of y'all are like, oh my God, I can't, that she's just so negative. They're just so negative. Look, the truth is kind of painful sometimes. And this has been true about black struggle, about black movements forever. Forever. Black people have always had a struggle, excuse me, funding the work that we need to do in not just in our communities, but in fighting racism and white supremacy in this country. And we've always had this issue with people questioning our motives and our actions because of who we get our money from. But the very same people don't want to give us any money. And then the other thing that happens when people focus on this George Soros business is that you focus so much on, and Garland Nixon made this point, you focus so much on who gives them money that you completely ignore why the organization exists in the first place.
That was
so
a good point.
yeah, I mean, okay, fine. George Soros we got issues with Soros. He's done some shady stuff. It's not like we're a fan of George Soros or we're letting him off the hook. We're
Soros
not.
Is out for Soros.
But that's the thing.
It's like, out for Koch brothers.
Why are you? You know who these people are. It's like why we don't focus a whole lot of time talking about the Republicans.
Right.
Why? You know what they're going to do. This is not a surprise that George Soros is going to give some money to a bunch of organizations on the left and on the right because, you know, for whatever reason. But could it be possible that he might just believe in the mission of some of these organizations? Could it be possible that he might just believe that giving money to these organizations is a good idea so that, I don't know, maybe when we finally do take over the system, we don't come after him?
I was thinking the same thing.
I mean,
yeah, I was thinking the same.
You know,
and you know something about you said something that stuck with me when you said about a lot of people, and you know I get this all the time, but when you said, yeah, you know, there's people saying, oh, that they're too negative, here they go again. Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know about you, Jackie, but I didn't live a golly gee life. I didn't live a G. Willikers life. You know what I mean? I watched Leave It to Beaver on TV, but I didn't live like Leave It to Beaver.
You stop showing all my meat over there.
I don't know what it is, but I didn't live like Leave It to Beaver, and I know a lot of us didn't. But I'm saying, like, look, man. I mean, you grew up in the projects. I grew up in the projects.
Yeah.
And you know, and all we saw around us was poverty. Now, it wasn't like you said on our last stream. We didn't live in the Donald Trump hell. That didn't exist.
Right.
But we understood as kids that, hey, something's not equal here because we were surrounded by white affluence. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we seen our parents going to work every day, working hard and doing all of these things. And yet somehow we just could not break that barrier.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, my father was in the service, in the military. And he went to work every day. Mm-hmm. Everybody I knew worked. Mm-hmm. You know, but yet all I had to do was drive like 2 miles outside of my neighborhood, and then the color of the people changed.
Right.
You know, everything looked cleaner. Mm-hmm. The streets were paved.
The houses were bigger.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I used to always say as a kid, like, damn, you know, what was this all about? That was never explained to me.
Right.
But how it got like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then as a kid, you start saying, well, man, is there something wrong with us? Like,
right.
So I mean, these things have a lot of it's a lot of things that go with this, and so those who think that it's too negative, look. Negative is what we seen coming up. I mean, what was done to us was negative.
Yeah.
And, please, let me say this. If you're getting racial fatigue now, please. I mean, because, you can't take reparation talk.
I can't take any more black stuff.
Or you get on our page and you see a whole bunch of stuff that's happening to the black folks. Trust and believe. This is a daily thing for us. You just reading a few stories. You just sitting up here reading a few articles and then, oh God, I can't take it. But this is our reality for most of us every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a good day for most of us is to be able to leave the house, come home, and not get arrested, not get shot,
not get harassed by the police.
Not get harassed by the police. But every day, for the most part, and especially for black men, every day you suffer some type of racial indignities. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the white woman that holds her pocketbook too tight, or you get on the metro. And white folks, y'all don't know how offensive this is. You get on the metro, you see the one black man sitting in the seat by himself, and y'all would rather sit on each other's shoulders than to sit next to that
brother.
Dude. You know what I mean? How many times, Jackie, I was on the metro coming from work, and it's during rush hour, and everybody's getting on and stuff. And then, you go through certain stops, because we're in D.C., government town. And you get on certain stops like, what's that, Federal Plaza and
Federal Center.
Yeah, Federal Center, and mostly white folks get on.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you sitting there, and I'm trying to give y'all some insight into the mentality. You even try to squeeze yourself over to the window to try to communicate to them that, I'm trying to shrink myself.
Just to give you some more space.
Just to give you some space. And then, the look you get this look like, I'm not sitting there. And so do you know how you internalize that?
Every day.
I mean, like I'm in my 50s now. I can give a shit, but I'm telling you, I mean, there was a time that bothered me.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell is wrong with me? You don't want to sit next to me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's those little indignities that that you deal with every day.
Yeah.
Just that kind of stuff is like, yo, man, what's wrong with me? And so. I was so glad that you said that about funding and how we don't want to pay for anything. Look, we've been in this thing long enough to know. We look on our page and we see, oh, you got 5,000 followers or whatever. We know that out of those 5,000, only 20 y'all down.
Yep. I
mean, for real.
That's the truth.
We've been here. You know what I mean? You got 5,000 followers.
Since 2013.
Yeah. But we know out those 5,000 followers, only 20 of y'all about it. We know that. The rest of y'all are sitting back there, and the extent of your activism is hitting that damn like button.
That's it.
That's even if you care about that.
And it's funny because the 20 of y'all that's truly ride or die. Heck, we know y'all names.
How about that?
That's.
How about that?
I mean, so I thought that was a really important point to make when we're talking about what we should be focusing on. Like, our focus has never changed. It didn't matter to us that Bernie Sanders had run and he's this groundswell of support. Our whole thing was, what's Bernie going to do for black folks?
That's it.
I mean, it didn't matter when Hillary Clinton declared that she was going to. What's Hillary going to do for black folks? During Obama's second term, when is he going to do something for black folks?
Yeah.
Like the first term, we were like, okay, we just want to make sure he didn't get killed.
Right. We don't want the white folks to kill him, so we don't want to push him too
We don't want to push too hard.
Y'all think that's funny, but
seriously.
There was some people in the black community that actually believed that if Obama pushed too hard for black folks, white folks was going to kill him.
That seriously,
I mean,
man.
I've heard that on radio.
Yeah. And I've heard it from individual people. This is not a game. So for us, this whole issue, what we focus on has never changed.
No.
It's never changed, and guess what? It's never going to change. because unless the people on the bottom, that's black people, Native Americans, and the disabled, to be real honest with you, unless the people on the bottom and Hispanics get justice in this country, and that includes economic justice, I don't know how many times we can say it, none of y'all gonna get what you want. None of you. Because as long as politicians can continue to keep you from focusing on redressing the issues of the least among you, they know they can continue stealing from you, because they'll keep you distracted from the fact that it's because you keep voting for them that you're not getting what you want. I mean, it's not complicated. It really isn't. People are honestly still asking, how do we change things? A year from now, in the midterms, every single one of them needs to be voted out. Every single one. And I see now,
that's right.
And now I'm looking at what's going on in the state races. It's not going to happen. There are going to be a few losses, but y'all ain't serious. I mean, honestly, you want to create a third party. You want to create another third party.
Ain't done nothing with the Green Party.
Hasn't done anything with the Green Party that's actually there. Now you don't like the Green Party for whatever reasons. People don't like the Green. And the Green Party's got problems. Every political party does, but at least the Green Party is saying to people at the local level, here we are. If we're not doing what you want, come take it over and drive it. Do you do that? I mean, at least the Green Party is offering. Who else is offering that? Nobody.
Nancy the Mummy Pelosi.
Nancy the Mummy Pelosi.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
Chuck Zika Schumer. You know what I mean? Maxine Crusty Waters.
I thought Maxine was the mummy.
They're all mummies. It's the whole mummy brigade. I mean, the thing of it is the fact that the Democratic Party. I mean, come on, man. We're not going to see any change through them.
No, not a bit. So, I mean, you've got people who are newer to politics and new-ish to the movement talking about you want a revolution, but you don't want to listen to the people who have been living and breathing revolution since we've been born, practically. We're in the trenches and we're telling you this is how we are going to win. You are going to have to replace everybody on your school board with progressives. You're going to have to replace your current mayor and city councils with progressives.
But see, in order to get to that point, if I may interject, in order to get this to the point, we have to be honest with ourselves. And when I mean honest with ourselves, what I'm saying is, if I'm a white progressive, and I'm listening to what you're saying right now, and I'm saying, well, Jackie said that if I really want to be part of the John Brown Club, I need to do this and do that and the third. But the honest conversation has to come. Am I willing to sacrifice what I have benefited from? See, the thing of it is that, and we said this on the last stream, the reason why so many of y'all run up the Standing Rock, right? Or go out there, and all those are important. But listen to what I'm saying before you tune me out. What I'm saying is the fact, the reason why we can do all of those things, y'all can do all of those things, and walk arm in arm with the DACA kids, the Dreamers, and all that other kind of stuff, is the fact, and listen to this. Now, how many times the DACA kids, everybody's talking about that, they came, they were born here against their will. Does that sound familiar? And then number two is the fact that, but they made so many achievements. They joined our military, some of them. They went to school, they got college educations and stuff, and everything. Sound like they were following our blueprint. But the thing of it is the fact that when we came up here and told y'all that our college kids are 50% unemployment, even with a college degree, sad emoji. Nobody was locking arms with black kids from Howard. They weren't locking arms with black college kids who did everything that this country said they were supposed to do. But then, as Jackie just said earlier, black discrimination in employment since 1989. So that means that our kids, my kids, that went through college through that time period, they were victims of that.
That's right.
So you're talking about a 50% unemployment rate amongst college-educated black kids
compared to white college-educated kids.
Right. That the Department of Labor even said themselves that a white man with a high school education with a criminal record can get a job quicker than a black kid with a college degree with no criminal record.
Right.
But yet there was no locking arms with our kids. And so what I'm saying is the fact that when we start talking about identity politics, this is why we have to do it. Because you think that the dreamers are the first ones to come here that ended up here not on their own volition and made something of themselves.
Right.
Hello, let's look back at all of the prosperous black communities that were bombed and robbed and so I mean they weren't the first. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that so what I'm saying is the fact that we have to have that honest conversation with ourselves to say, even though I might not agree with this stuff as a white person, I damn sure benefited from the marginalization of other people.
That's right.
Are you willing to give that up?
Exactly. I mean, and we are talking about stuff that's not complicated. None of this is, I understand that unlike Standing Rock, glad you brought that up again, and I think we have to keep nailing this for people to understand. I understand why Standing Rock and Flint are easy points of activism for people, because you can point to those places, right? You know where the problem physically exists. What black people experience, where do we go? What building can we show up at? Right? Where can we go and set up a camp to address white supremacy? Nowhere and everywhere. So that's why we have to continually focus on addressing black issues, what people like to call black issues, but honestly, they're not really black issues, because the white supremacy is aimed at us, but it affects you too. Because as we're seeing, let's just take the one issue of police brutality, then we got to move on to the next point. Right. So let's just take the one issue of police brutality. Hey, Hannington, this discussion is about everything.
Yep, just strap in and go for the ride.
So let's just take the one issue of police brutality real quick. We all know that black people and native people are disproportionately, unarmed black people and native people are disproportionately shot and killed by the police. People love to talk about more white people are shot by the police, but most of the white people who are shot by the police are actually armed and are threatening the lives of police officers or other people. Do you hear what I'm saying? White people who are shot by the police because they are about to shoot the police or other people. When black people talk about the extrajudicial killings of police officers, we are talking about people who are unarmed and are not posing a threat to police or anybody else at the time. But let's make that clear. Now, for so long, and this is not a new phenomenon, this has been going on since police existed. Honestly, I'm not making this up. This has been going on since police were a thing in this country. So this is something that we have fought against since
centuries.
Since we've been in this country. The only thing new to all of this is social media and cameras. That's it. Everything else has been going on for centuries. So a lot of people, since they've been made aware of the police brutality issue, they've been very concerned. Oh, this is horrible that this happens to black people. And some people are very concerned that black people are being racially targeted and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But see, as long as it's only happening to black people, as long as most people know that's probably not going to happen in their small town, as corrupt and messed up as some of y'all cops might be, and as crazy as some of them might have gotten and carried away as some of them might have gotten with some people, unarmed white people have not been killed with the regularity that unarmed black people have. So just on sheer numbers, most white people don't have encounters with police to the point where they're afraid of the police. And this is not saying that to feed into the conservative argument that well, white people don't commit that much crime. No. It's that the police aren't concentrated in most white neighborhoods like they are in most black neighborhoods. And that's not because most black people commit crime, more black people commit crime. That's because that's the way the system is designed.
Yeah, and it's
right.
And you're right, and it's not just the concentration of police. It's the mentality of the police
exactly.
that are in that neighborhood. If you're policing people who you believe are inherently criminal,
right,
that's how you respond to them.
Everybody,
you're not officer friendly.
You're not officer friendly to them. So even the middle-aged black woman getting off the bus coming from work, she is a potential enemy combatant to you.
Exactly.
So you treat people that way.
Especially black women, because y'all so strong.
So aggressive. Me in this aggressive body language.
Yep,
oh my God. So for most white people, they can't fathom the police behaving that way in their communities. So, people were upset. They were angry. They got involved with some Black Lives Matter protests. Mm-hmm. But when it came to actually pushing politicians to confront and deal with police unions and take away some of the power and influence of police unions, oh no, white people, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I think that's because, the police need the police unions because the police unions protect the police, when in fact it is the police unions that give the marching orders to the politicians. It's not the other way around. The police unions tell the politicians and the prosecutors what they're not going to do when a police officer gets in trouble. That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of white people using their power and privilege and influence to confront these politicians and to tell them, stop taking marching orders from these police unions. Because if you don't, we're not going to vote for you anymore. You won't have a job anymore. See, that's your role, allies. That's your role. That's what you can use that privilege and I won't say authority, but position for. That's what you can use. Your social position. That's what you can use it for. But because that was a black issue, a lot of white people wouldn't do that. So you had all these angry, afraid, frustrated, enraged black people up in the city council meeting cussing at the police chief, the head of the police union. And what does he care? Because he knows nobody's going to listen to us.
Right.
So he sits there and he takes that, yelling and screaming and occasional cussing for an hour and a half or so at the city council meeting. And then he goes home and he continues to tell the city council what they're not going to do to the police officers that his union represents when one of those police officers kills an unarmed black child. And what happens when white people see it on the news? Oh, that's so sad. It's just sad emoji. But see, now, over the past couple of, maybe a month?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the police in this country have been wilding out. Now they're starting to kill white people.
Because you know why? They're starting to do that now?
Why?
Because the white population have given them carte blanche.
That's the thing.
Anytime that there has to be checks and balances. And every time when it was happening to us, it was like, well, the video didn't start.
We didn't see the whole video, so we don't know what happened at the beginning.
And you have to trust the process. And I understand, but if you really look at it and dissect the tape, you would see that the black man actually was aggressive at 1.02 on the videotape. Look at it now, 1.02. You see that look? That's where the officer may have felt for. I'm not saying he did, but maybe he felt for his life at that point. So now,
did you see his nostrils flare?
Right. So what happened was, why it was all of this luxury of saying, well, we support our police. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens is the police say, well, damn, okay, they support us. So now, after a while now, like any other wild dog, it just starts biting everybody.
Yup, that's the truth.
Now you can't control the dog.
And see, that is the best example I can come up with
Dog biting everybody in the ass.
Poor Brewski our dog is where is he? Is he laying on the floor? I think he went in the other room. He must be like that. They just profiled me. Our dog is probably all upset because now we're gonna have to
hate speech.
Then we're gonna have to have a little talk with him and explain that we didn't mean all dogs, Brewski. You're one of the good ones.
That's what they created, it's a rabid dog.
But that is how white supremacy eventually affects you too. It's not so when we talk about discrimination in employment, yes, that directly affects black people. It directly affects how much money we make. It directly affects whether we can take care of our families or not. Mm-hmm. But it also affects you because it perpetuates the system of racialized income inequality. And you have to continue to ignore it in order for you to continue to get the little crumbs that the politicians you keep voting for sweep off the table so that they can keep getting more that they're taking from you. You don't even realize you're the middleman in this white supremacy thing.
And where in actuality, if just like in the Bacon Rebellion that people like to bring up, that if the white working class and the black working class and the Latino working class all realize what they have in common as workers, then you will really see the power structure start to really shake.
Exactly.
But they keep this division because it works. Because it works. That's why. They keep that division up because it works.
But see, and I'm glad you brought that up. That if black workers and white workers and Hispanic and Latino workers, would realize what they have in common, I'm convinced that most white people understand that statement differently from the way we understand it. See, when we say that, what we mean is white people, you all need to understand that you have more in common with us than you do with them. You're not just what's the word? Temporarily delayed millionaires.
Right.
Your alliance, your allegiance to those in the higher socioeconomic classes above you. Your admiration for them is based on nothing more than your belief that you could be like them if you just keep doing what they tell you to do. And one of the things they tell you to do is to crap on us. Mm. So, but I think when white people hear that statement, if white workers and black workers believe, understood that they had more, I really do think white people think that they believe it's our job, that we are the ones causing the division, that black people are the ones causing the division, and we need to realize how much more we have in common with them. But
okay, I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
Because before we move on to the next story, this point, we referenced a video from the Mother of All Rallies, right? Mm-hmm. And we said about the bikers there.
Right, and we look for that video. We got to find it. It's hard to find
Facebook
now.
Facebook is messing with us. But so what happened was there was a biker that was there. And the biker, and see, you got to understand language and how people phrase things. Trust me, the white supremacists have been doing their homework. They realize that the I hate niggas stuff don't fly anymore. Yeah. So now this, I hate kikes and all this stuff. They know that nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
So now it's like, the gentler, softer white supremacists, right?
Ethno-state.
Or why can't I feel proud of my heritage?
Right.
Now check this out. So it was one biker. And he said to the reporter, he said, look, I don't have anything against the Latinos. I don't have anything against blacks or anybody else. But when you come to this country, he said, you need to assimilate, be American and assimilate, right? Assimilate, right? And so what happened is that you and I was having this conversation when we was coming home because it was also the topic was, uplift suasion, respect politics, respectability politics, and what is respectability politics? An attempt to assimilate, right? An attempt to tell white folks that we're just like you,
right?
We're just like you. And the reason why that is so insane, Jackie, and you and I spoke about this coming home, is the fact that out of any other group of people in this country outside of European Americans, is that who else are more assimilated, is more assimilated into this culture than Black Americans? We wear your names, except those of us who have changed it.
Right.
But we wear your names.
That's right.
In most cases, your religion, you know, our recycled religion that came through you. But you know, but what I'm saying is that you got you know, Black folks in this country don't have African names for the most part.
That's true.
You know, they don't have African religions.
That's right.
They don't have African customs. They practice Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and everything else. 4th of July, and we were still slaves then. And Black folks celebrate 4th of July. So I mean, there was never a question about our assimilation into this thing. It's that we just weren't wanted.
Exactly. Now, that is a great point. That is an excellent point, because whenever people bring up this thing about, you know, assimilating into American culture, that we didn't have a choice. That was forced on us. But what's the one thing we couldn't assimilate? I'm looking at a comment here from Dave Houston, who said, and I'm so glad you said this, Dave, but all types of collectivism is division. Embrace individualism and you will no longer see color. For anybody who thinks that not seeing color is a good thing, please stop that. Please stop that. I don't have a problem with you seeing my color. I don't want you to act like I'm not Black. And stop being ridiculous. Of course you see you're not blind. You're not blind. Only a blind person or a colorblind person cannot see my color. The issue is not whether you see my color. The issue is how you treat me because of my color. And whether you see color or not, Dave, this government treats me differently than it treats you because of my color. Always has. So,
But see his point about embracing individualism, that ain't, you know, that ain't for us. And
it's
what
not.
I mean, like,
it's not.
That kind of argument is not for Black folks, because first of all, if we were all individuals, man, y'all would have wiped us out. So collectivism was a necessary survival tool for us. And another thing about it is the fact that when we start talking about wealth, inequality, what we're getting ready to go into now, we don't have the luxury, Dave, of embracing individualism, because we're about ready to actually experience Blade Runner.
Yeah. Oh, and one last point before we get to that article. Nobody in this country, no white person in this country believes in individualism. That's a blatant lie that's been fed to people. Oh, the rugged individualism of America, and that's how we just made it through our own. No, you didn't. White people are able to experience benefits in employment, in finance, in housing, in education, because of the connections they have. Now, this doesn't mean that every white person knows somebody who can hook them up with a job and who can hook them up with a nice interest rate on a car loan. But we all know that people got into Ivy League colleges because their parents were graduates.
Oh, well, it's a problem in places like Harvard now.
Yeah,
to the point where almost most of the freshman incoming class is basically got somebody that was already connected to Harvard.
And these are people who would not have been able, let me be clear, these are white people who would not have been able to qualify to get into Harvard had their parents not been alumni. So this idea that America's greatness is based on individualism, that's some stuff. That's not even true. America's wealth was built off of people that wealthy landowners forced to come here against their will and work. How is that individualism? They didn't work the land themselves.
But isn't that, come on, isn't that disingenuous to tell people to embrace individualism after you got everything?
Especially since some people got stuff that we were denied.
And I'm talking about white America as a whole. I mean, you white America as a whole has enjoyed slave labor. free land for the
Lord
most
have
part.
mercy. Dave, you did not bring up that Martin Luther King quote about his little children one day living. So you don't know anything about what Martin Luther King said about this country and what white people and how need to do and how disappointed he was in the white moderate who always talked about, well, not now. This isn't the right time. No, I understand your means, but I don't believe in your methods. So you don't know anything about Martin Luther King saying any of that.
But it ain't nothing. But it's another point of distraction.
It is,
And that's all it is.
and
And
it's just,
that's the reason why, Dave, if you as an individual have risen above all of this, God bless you. But guess what? Most of y'all haven't. So that's the part we're dealing with.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is the fact that it's easy to sit back like Hillary Clinton did to the Africans and say, well, let's not talk about what happened in the past. Let's just move on from here. But then, heifer, the Western already got rich off of exploiting Africa.
Yeah, let's just move on from here and let's all make some money.
So you exploited the people, the resources, and everything else, and now you got wealthy. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, let's not talk about that no more. You know what I mean? Come on, man, that's great.
Yeah,
but I want to move on to
why we're even having this conversation.
Right. But I want to move on briefly to could you throw that thing up about the inequality? Because what I want to say is the reason why to our white friends why we keep on stressing about the finances.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? Because we're going to put an article up here now. We had something to do with these kids in the monuments, but I think we need to get to this right now.
Yeah. So okay, it's up now. This is from The Guardian. And it says, the median wealth of Black Americans will fall to 0 by 2053. 0.
Yep.
2053 is
36
years from now.
36 years from now. Yep.
Conceivably, hun, if we
lifetime.
live right, you and I will still be alive.
Yeah, look. But even if we're not, our kids will.
Our kids will. Our grandkids will.
Exactly. So so that's definitely within their lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So but could you read some of that real quickly so we know what we're talking about?
Yep.
Here? So
let me see. This study came from the Ford Foundation. It says by 2020, median Black and Latino households stand to lose nearly 18% and 12% of the wealth they held in 2013, respectively. Now, it's important to pause right there and remember that in the housing crash of 2008, who lost the most wealth?
Black people.
Of all groups of people.
Even more than Latino. Black people.
And Black people have yet. White people have recovered a pretty significant amount from the housing crash. Latinos have recovered. Asians have recovered. The only group of people who have not recovered from the housing crash were Black people. All right? That's important to note. This goes on to say, while median white household wealth increases by 3%, the report states. At that point, just 3 years from now, white households are projected to own 86 times more wealth than Black households and 68. At that point, by 2020, 3 years from now,
y'all.
By 2020, white households are projected to own 86 times more wealth than Black households and 68 times more wealth than Latino households. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit more so you can really see this. This is a little graphic. The ever-growing gap, Black, Latino, and white household wealth between 1983 and 2013. This is the legend for white household income. This is the white household income line way up here. This is the median income of your average of
Yeah,
all white
don't give
families
me
in the
individual
country.
cases of
Don't
poor
I
white
don't want to
people.
hit. I don't want to hit it because if we're gonna do that, then we can look at the individual cases of filthy stinking rich white people,
Right.
of filthy stinking rich black people, and we know they don't represent all of us.
Right.
So let's stop with that. Especially when even poor white people, when they own homes, their homes are valued at a higher market value than black people with comparable homes and comparable incomes.
And poor whites also have social capital, which blacks don't have.
That's
which
the
means
connections.
That's the connections.
Right. Okay. So this is the average white household. Not saying that every white person makes this much. This is the average median white household income. This is the average or median black household income.
That's down the bottom, right?
This is the red line down here.
So that's a flat line, right?
It's flat.
So what happens to the body when you have a flat line?
You die.
Right. So you're really literally looking at a community that's dying, that's dead,
right,
economically.
And Latinos, they're right down here with us.
I mean, they're taking shallow breaths.
Yeah.
But our hearts are about to stop.
But look at this. Even the median Latino household income is $2,000 in 2013, where the median Latino income, the median black income, $1,700.
Now this is what I want to ask you, Jackie.
Yes.
Everybody keep talking about how hard Latinos work. Why is not benefiting them economically?
That's a great question. If Latinos,
if it was all about just hard work,
if it's all about individualism and hard work, then how is it that the group of people that is perceived to be more hardworking than black people,
right,
how is it that group of people isn't faring much better than the group of people that's supposed to be the laziest bunch of folks in this country?
Exactly.
I don't know how we became lazy after we worked for free for 2.5 centuries. But you know, that's how the narrative goes. So that's that chart. Let's see. The middle class. This is perfect. This is beautiful. Let's address this individualism. People think that the middle class just sprung up because, individual white people became enterprising,
right,
and they all worked hard, and they, that their hefty salaries were the
American
natural, right. Their hefty salaries were the natural fruits of their labor. That's bullshit. The middle class didn't just happen by market forces. And the whiteness of the middle class didn't just happen by market forces. Both were intentional, said Dedrick Asante Muhammad, a senior fellow at Prosperity Now and one of the report's authors. We listened to a show on WPFW today where they were talking about another report. It might have been this one that came from Prosperity Now. Take home ownership, which has long been the primary means by which Americans of modest and middle-class income are able to build generational wealth. Mm-hmm. After the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule to newly freed slaves, virtually nothing was done to endow black Americans.
No, there was something done.
Oh, what was that?
No, I'm saying. I'm being sarcastic. You said virtually nothing
was virtually
done.
Nothing.
No, a little bit was done.
No, virtually nothing.
A tiny bit was done.
Okay. I will give you this much. The Freedmen's Bureau and the Freedmen's Bank was established.
And what happened with
they
that?
were established. Well, something happened where those people lost their money.
What happened was, and we covered that history, is that there was $43 million in the Freedmen Bank. Uh-huh. White folks thought it was too much money and took it.
Yeah, 43. You want to talk about hard working? Let's talk about some hard working people. I'm sorry.
Let's finish.
Okay, let's finish, because you know how I go off on my tangents. Okay, so virtually nothing was done to endow black Americans with a share of the wealth generated by centuries, 2.5 centuries of slave labor. The same labor that directly or indirectly helped to build most of the wealth enjoyed by white Americans. So black Americans started off generations behind only to encounter the redlining and racially restrictive housing covenants of the early to middle 20th century, which prevented the sale of many homes to Black Americans and isolated them together in communities that lost value as white residents fled to the suburbs. Let me go down. Oh, I was hoping they got here. Programs such as the GI Bill, individualism.
Individualism. Yep.
I'm sorry, the New Deal wasn't individualism.
Nope.
The New Deal was a big fat government handout to white people to create a middle class.
Yeah, because we weren't included.
Because programs such as the GI Bill, which offered returning World War II veterans generous lending terms to buy houses, helped turn the U.S. into a home-owning middle-class society. Here's the key, from which Black Americans were functionally excluded. They say functionally excluded because the GI Bill itself and the New Deal itself, as it was written as legislation, was not racially exclusionary.
No, it was not. When it was implemented by the states.
When it was implemented by the states found ways to exclude Black people from receiving the benefits of the New Deal. In his book, When Affirmative Action Was White, Ira Katznelson notes that of the first 67,000 mortgages insured by the GI Bill, fewer than 100 were taken out by white people.
By non-white people.
By non-white people. Thank you.
67,000.
67,000. Here they mentioned what we just talked about, the housing burst. Unfortunately, home values don't come back in the same way in Black communities when things happen. Said Althea Saunders Rainier, a financial coach advisor in Baltimore, Maryland, where about 95% of her clients are Black. One of the things Asante Muhammad and his co-authors found extremely important was focusing on inequality of wealth as opposed to income, because they felt it was more accurate. It was a more accurate test of middle class status. Wow. I'm not going to read the whole article to you.
But let me say that Sandy put asked a question. And she said, "What will this planet look like in 2053?" Well, I'll tell you what, Sandy. I'll tell you what this country's going to look like in 2053 if this trends continue. Is the fact that James Baldwin said that when the people is denied the American dream, that they will soon wreck it. So this country is going to have to invest a lot more into policing. Because what are you going to do with a population that got zero economic growth? What are you going to do with that population? So you're going to have to control them in some way. And in some way, which means, Sandy, that there's going to be more resources donated to security. Right. Which means that the ones that do have the money, they're going to have to find ways of living somewhere where those who got the flat line. Now, mind you, now we talking about Blacks, but the Latinos they taking shallow breaths. Right. And their numbers are growing population-wise. Now, listen to what I'm saying to you. Their population is growing so much so that they're already numerically have more numerically than we do as a population. So they ain't got no money. Nope. And then we ain't got no money. And white people, and like George said, it's already happening. So what's going to happen is we're going to have a country now where you're going to have a bunch of gated communities surrounded by, it's going to be Fortress America.
Yep, that's exactly it.
It's going to be Fortress America.
And every dystopian, maybe not post-apocalyptic, but certainly every dystopian movie that we see that we love, where you've got these gated communities, all of these gated cities where the haves live and everybody on the outside of the have-nots, literally fighting to the death for scraps to eat. That's what this country is going to become. But here's the thing that a lot of white people don't realize. Here's the part in this dystopian future that's only 36 years away that white people don't get. See, most of them think that they're going to be the people on the inside of these walls, right? because they believe that, look, I got mine, just like Keir said, I got mine, you get yours, you stick to individualism, I got mine. But a lot of those white people are going to find themselves on the fringes of, if they're inside the walls, they're going to find themselves being the lower class of those people on the inside, on the inside of the walls. They'll be the undesirables of the lucky ones. And while they believe they'll have the luxury of, at least we're not out there.
Right.
With them, they're going to start to get to live the experiences that we've lived. And their time on the inside of their wall is going to be short, because they're not going to be able to keep up with the economic requirements for being able to stay on the inside of their wall. So I feel like it is really up to white America right now to decide, what are you going to do about that? I mean, is that the future? Is that the future you're willing to allow to happen? All because you'd rather focus on other issues that you think are more important. Because, talking about these black issues is a nuisance to you? And you don't think they have anything to do with you? They have everything to do with you.
Well, it also, in 36 years' time, and I'm glad you asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
In 36 years' time, it's basically, what type of country are you going to leave for your kids?
Uh-huh.
Because, see, those of you who are listening to us right now, you're probably of a certain age. So by the time those 36 years come, more than likely, you'll be too old to really do much about anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be your kids that's going to be left with this fallout.
Yep.
Your grandkids that's going to be left with this fallout. It's going to be your kids and grandkids that's not even going to be able to travel through this country, because when you're dealing with a population that don't have anything, that flat line,
mm-hmm.
and you're talking about, where's little Jimmy going to go? Because
mm-hmm.
Little Hector and little Raheem, who went to college and stuff, and,
mm-hmm.
They talented and they gifted. Or they probably couldn't go to college, because if the community ain't got no money, then they can't get it. They can't get a higher education,
mm-hmm.
because college costs college tuition constantly increases.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're talking about those opportunities aren't available anymore.
Right.
So you can't even educate your way out of this because you can't pay, because your community can't pay to send you to college because there's no money.
That's right.
And then you got to sit back and listen to these assholes running for government talking about, American exceptionalism and
rugged individualism.
I mean, look. I'm talking about, here I am, 51 years old, and I can remember the same talking points in the 70s when I was a kid, that these politicians would come around in the ghettos and talk about, all we need to do is do this, and all we need to do is do that. And here it is, 40-something years later, and the situation is worse off.
Right.
So what I'm saying is the fact that if you think that you don't have a vested interest in what we're talking about, then you done forfeited the country.
Yep.
Because you ain't going to be able to live in it either. Because you ain't going to talk about a Latino population that's outpacing everybody, and they ain't got no money.
Right.
Along with a black population who y'all tried to destroy for centuries, but we still here.
Yeah.
And then the 1% that's squeezing y'all so much that the poverty rate amongst whites is going to increase. Right now, you only got 36 to 38 people in this country that got most of the wealth of the bottom half. 38 people.
Yep.
Right? So now you got those two, and then what's going to happen is that now you're going to have more and more poor whites. They're going to have to cope. So you think you got an opioid addiction now?
Oh my God.
Or epidemic now? What else people going to do to try to soothe? Try to soothe the feeling of hopelessness that this country that they're getting ready to inherit.
Yep.
So you know what? Keep your sad emojis. Keep all of that stuff. Because, see, we ain't got, like Sandy said something about climate change. And I think really that's going to be the least of our problems. Because climate change is very important. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, man, how you expect people that ain't got nothing to do anything about the planet?
Right.
How you expect people to do, how you expect people who ain't going to have nothing to care about, you're talking about, man, Mad Max type stuff.
Right, right. And I mean, really, if we're going to talk about issues like environmental racism and climate change, but climate change in the perspective of environmental racism, climate change has already affected those people.
Pretty much.
I mean, because we've already relegated the poorest among us, who are usually black and brown, to live in communities next to industries and facilities that we know are polluters.
Right.
So we've already given up entire communities of people to climate change. People, the poorest people in this country, usually mostly black and brown, are already experiencing climate change. Those people in Houston that live next to the oil refinery or the chemical plant.
Oh yeah, that nobody on our page acknowledged. See, see, this is the thing, man. And I, look, I hate to lose my temper on this, but see, this is the thing. You got fatigue. You got a black community right now down there in Beaumont, Texas, who run in the house every time Exxon oil refinery have an explosion. They got to run inside the house
because of the toxic fumes.
Because of the toxic fumes that's around. But damn it to hell, let a dog come down the street or something like that.
Unless somebody show a video of beating a dog.
Right. So man, we got to start caring about other humanity, man. We got to start caring about that. And check this out. Because of climate change, our time is getting short.
Yeah. We
ain't got forever to fix this. What I'm saying.
What did Phil say? We're the first generation who is fighting this battle against white supremacy and imperialism on a clock.
So there is no more room to obsess about Hillary's book.
There's none.
There's no more room about none of that stuff. Either we are going to get together as a group, the collectivism that some people hate, but either we are going to take back the soul of our country and start righting these wrongs, or we lost it. The country's gone. I'm letting you know that right now. The country is gone.
Yep. And make no mistake about it, all of our white friends, we mean you. When we say we mean you. We mean those of you who are still obsessing over Hillary, who are still obsessing over the DNC and Seth. Not saying that those things are not important and that they need to be addressed, but 36 years.
They're just
36 years. 36 years, the wealth of black people in this country will be zero. If that isn't more important to you than Hillary Clinton and her damn book, then we're all doomed. Just let me know now, so I know, so I know who to keep messing with. So we went a little bit over time because we had a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. Share this video, like our page, subscribe to us on YouTube. We are on YouTube. Donate to Lukman Nation either through monthly patronage or one-time donation, monthly patronage on Patreon, or one-time donation on PayPal. We will have our GoFundMe up soon, within the next couple of weeks, for our documentary, right. For our documentary, Baltimore After the Fire, that we are in pre-production on. And stay tuned. Actually, we'll be at Howard University tomorrow.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
I'm so glad I didn't forget that. We're going to be at Howard University tomorrow because the students of Howard University are protesting former FBI Director James Comey being invited to speak at their opening convocation. Can you believe that? But the organization HU Resist, which is a student-led resistance political organization, is protesting at the convocation, and Lukman Nation will be there to bring you that convocation and those kids' resistance. I shouldn't call them kids because they're adults by now. And those students' resistance action to that tomorrow morning. So we'll be at Howard University. Thank you all very much for listening. What else you got?
Hey, look, have a good night. But resist. That's what I want to say. Resist.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Good night.